"You're nothing but decoration in a uniform, sweetheart." The words came from a two-star Admiral seconds before his fist connected with her jaw. 1,000 Marines stood frozen as Lieutenant Nora Kane took the hit without flinching. Blood ran down her chin onto the parade ground, but she didn't move, didn't speak. Just locked eyes with him, calm, cold, unbroken. What he didn't know was that standing in front of him was one of the deadliest operators the Navy had ever trained. And what happened next would end his career. Camp Pendleton, California. Morning formation, 0800 hours. The parade ground stretched wide and flat under a gray sky, fog rolling in thick from the Pacific Ocean. Rows of Marines stood in perfect formation, dress uniforms sharp under the clouded sun. The air smelled like salt water mixed with diesel fuel and fresh boot polish. Lieutenant Nora Kane stood near the rear of the formation, 28 years old, medium height, lean build. Her uniform was pressed crisp, boots polished to a mirror shine. But it wasn't her appearance that made people notice her. It was the way she carried herself, completely still, completely present. Like someone who had nothing left to prove and no interest in trying. She had dark hair pulled back tight, a face that gave nothing away, and eyes that seemed to look right through you. On her left wrist, just below her watch, she wore a thin black band. She touched it sometimes when she was thinking, a habit. Colonel James Whitaker stood 20 yards away near the reviewing stand, arms crossed, watching the ceremony preparation. He was 52, 3 years at Pendleton, and he'd seen plenty of officers rotate through. Nora was different. Quiet. Never caused trouble. But there was something about her he couldn't quite figure out. Something in her eyes, like she was always somewhere else. Today was supposed to be simple. A formal review of training staff, some speeches, a few handshakes, nothing complicated. Then Rear Admiral Marcus Hale arrived. Before we continue, if you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city or country name in the comments. We love hearing from you. And if you want more real stories about real heroes, hit that subscribe button right now. Rear Admiral Marcus Hale was 56 years old, 2 stars on his collar, 34 years in the Navy. He'd spent most of his career behind a desk managing budgets and reviewing reports. He believed in tradition. Order the way things had always been, and he believed women didn't belong in combat roles. He'd been assigned to oversee a joint training program at Pendleton, and he hated every minute of it. Too much change, too many new policies, too many people who didn't understand how things were supposed to work. The ceremony started on time. Hale stood at the reviewing stand, giving a speech about discipline and standards and maintaining the warrior culture that built the greatest military in history. Standard stuff. The Marines listened respectfully. Then Hale spotted Nora standing in the back row. He stopped mid-sentence, stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to Colonel Whitaker, who stood beside him on the platform. "Who is that?" Hale asked, pointing. "Lieutenant Kane, sir. Navy, she runs our advanced tactics program." Hale's jaw tightened. "I didn't ask what she did. I asked who authorized a woman to stand in formation with Marines." Whitaker kept his voice level. "She's fully qualified, sir. One of our best instructors." Hale stepped down from the platform. The microphone was still live, so 1,000 Marines heard every word. "I'll be the judge of that." He walked straight toward Nora, boots clicking on pavement. Every Marine in formation turned to watch. The fog seemed to press in closer, and Nora didn't move, didn't change her expression. Just stood there at attention, eyes forward. Hale stopped 2 feet in front of her. "You don't belong here, sweetheart. This is a man's world." Nora said nothing, didn't blink, just looked at him with flat, empty eyes. Something about that look made Hale angrier. The silence, the lack of reaction, like she wasn't taking him seriously. "You think you're tough," he said louder now. "You think you've earned the right to stand here with real warriors." Still nothing. Just that calm, empty stare. Hale's hand came up fast. A backhanded slap that cracked across her jaw with enough force to snap her head sideways. The sound echoed across the parade ground like a gunshot. Blood appeared instantly. A split lip, red drops falling onto the pavement. Nora didn't flinch, didn't step back. She straightened slowly, turned her head back to center and looked at him again. Her hands stayed at her sides. Her breathing didn't change. She just stood there, bleeding, completely calm. For a moment nobody moved. Nobody spoke. 1,000 Marines stood frozen, unable to process what they'd just seen. An admiral had just struck a subordinate officer in front of everyone. Hale's voice was shaking now. "You're dismissed. Get off my parade ground." Nora raised her hand in a slow, perfect salute. Then she turned and walked away, back straight, boots clicking. She didn't look at anyone, didn't speak, just walked. The silence behind her was absolute. Nora walked straight to the barracks bathroom and locked the door behind her. She stood at the sink looking at her reflection. Blood on her chin, swelling starting on her left cheek. The cut on her lip would need attention, but she'd had worse. She ran cold water, cleaned the blood off her face, and pressed a wet towel against her mouth. The physical pain didn't bother her. She'd been through hell week. She'd been shot at. She'd carried a dying man 200 meters under fire. A split lip was nothing. What bothered her was the anger. She'd spent 6 years learning control. Learning to stay calm when everything around her was chaos. Learning to make decisions under pressure without letting emotion interfere. And right now, every instinct in her body wanted to go back out there and put Marcus Hale on the ground. She closed her eyes, took 3 slow breaths, let the anger drain away. Her father's voice echoed in her head. Daniel Kane, Force Recon Marine, Vietnam veteran. He'd raised her alone in rural Montana after her mother died. Taught her to shoot, track, hunt. Taught her to stay calm no matter what. His favorite saying, control is the only weapon that never runs out of ammunition. Nora touched the black band on her left wrist. Underneath it was a small tattoo. REPR6, a date UG 2019. The day Lieutenant Marcus Brooks died in her arms in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. She'd made him a promise that day, that she'd keep doing the job. That she'd never let anger or fear control her. That she'd be calm in the storm, no matter what it cost. And today she'd kept that promise. She looked at herself in the mirror one more time. Same calm face, same empty eyes, the face she'd worn when she walked away from Hale, the face she'd worn when Brooks died. Then her phone rang. Colonel Whittaker, Lieutenant Kane, report to my office immediately. She tossed the towel in the sink, straightened her uniform and walked out. Whatever came next, she'd handle it the same way she handled everything. With control, with silence, with the kind of strength that didn't need to be loud. When Nora walked into Whittaker's office, Hale was already there. Standing by the window, arms crossed, face red, Whittaker sat behind his desk, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. He gestured to a chair. Lieutenant, sit down. Nora remained standing. I'm fine here, sir. Whittaker sighed. Rear Admiral Hale has filed a formal complaint. He's alleging insubordination and conduct unbecoming an officer. He's requesting that you be removed from your assignment and placed under disciplinary review. Nora said nothing, just stood there. Hale turned from the window. She disrespected me in front of 1,000 Marines. That kind of behavior can't be tolerated. Whittaker's voice went cold. You struck her, sir, in front of those same Marines. That's assault under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. I was correcting an officer who had no business being on that parade ground. Hale snapped. And if she thinks she's qualified to train Marines, then let's test that. Put her through the Advanced Combat Evaluation. 3 full days. If she completes it, I'll drop the complaint. If she quits, she's gone. Whittaker looked at Nora. Lieutenant, you don't have to agree to this. What he did was illegal. We can file charges. Nora was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Hale. 3 days, 3 days, Hale said. Full mission profile, the same evaluation we use for Force Recon candidates. Most people quit by day 2, and if I complete it, then I drop the complaint and you stay at Pendleton. Nora turned to Whittaker. Sir, I'll do it. Whittaker shook his head. Lieutenant, I'm ordering you not to. This is a setup. He's trying to. With respect, sir, I'll do it. Hale smiled. Good. Report to the training area at 0500 tomorrow morning. Bring your gear. We'll see how long you last. Nora saluted both officers and walked out. In the hallway outside, she leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from the effort of staying calm when every instinct told her to fight. But she knew what this really was. Hale wanted to humiliate her, wanted to prove that women didn't belong in combat roles. I wanted to use her failure as an example. What he didn't know was that Nora had already been through worse, much worse, and she'd survived by doing exactly what her father taught her. By staying calm, by staying controlled, by never letting anyone see her break. She touched the black band on her wrist, thought about Brooks, about the promise she'd made. Then she pushed off the wall and headed to her quarters. She had 18 hours to prepare. 18 hours to make sure she was ready for whatever Hale threw at her. 18 hours to prove that control was the only weapon that never ran out of ammunition. 0500 hours. The training area east of Pendleton, dark, cold. The fog was so thick you couldn't see 20 feet. Nora stood at the starting point, full combat load 60-pound pack, body armor, helmet rifle, water, medical kit. Everything she'd need for 3 days in the field. Hale was there standing beside a vehicle with 2 evaluators. He looked at her gear, then at her. "You ready, Lieutenant?" "Yes, sir. The rules are simple. 3 days, 5 major evolutions, navigation, tactical problem-solving, combat scenarios, casualty evacuation, escape, and evasion. You fail any one, you're done. You quit at any time, you're done." "Understood, sir." Hale checked his watch. "Your first objective is 30 kilometers north. You have 6 hours. If you're late, you fail. Good luck." He got in the vehicle and drove away. The evaluators followed in another truck, and Nora was alone in the dark. She adjusted her pack, checked her compass, and started walking. 30 kilometers with 60 pounds on your back is brutal no matter who you are. The terrain was rough, steep hills, loose rocks, thick brush. Nora's legs were burning after the first hour. After 3 hours, her shoulders felt like they were on fire. After 5 hours, every step hurt, but she kept moving, 1 foot in front of the other, breathing steady, mind-focused. She'd done this before. Hell Week at Bugies training, 200 miles of running and walking with almost no sleep, hypothermia, hallucinations. Guys twice her size quit because their minds broke before their bodies did. She'd made it through that. She could make it through this. She finished the 30 kilometers in 5 hours, 42 minutes. Hale was waiting at the checkpoint, looking disappointed. "Not bad," he said. For a warm-up, day 2 was designed to break people mentally. A series of tactical scenarios with no breaks in between, building clearances, ambush responses, hostage rescue simulations, each one designed to test decision-making under stress. The evaluators threw curveballs constantly, changed objectives mid-mission, added complications, gave incomplete information. Watched to see if she'd panic or hesitate. Nora didn't. She moved through each scenario the same way. Calm, methodical, professional. She made decisions quickly, executed them efficiently, and didn't waste energy second-guessing herself. By the end of day 2, Hale wasn't smiling anymore. He stood with the evaluators watching her work, and something in his expression had changed. He looked worried. Day 3 was the test that ended most candidates. A 20-hour final evolution combining everything. Navigate to 3 separate objectives under time pressure. Execute a simulated raid on a target building. Deal with a mass casualty situation. Then escape and evade while evaluators hunt you through the hills. Nora started at dawn. Her body was shutting down, muscles screaming, vision blurring from exhaustion. Every step felt like dragging an anchor. But her mind stayed sharp. She thought about her father, about the lessons he'd taught her in those Montana hills, about staying calm when everything hurts. She thought about Brooks, about holding him while he died, about the promise she'd made. Control is the only weapon that never runs out of ammunition. At hour 16, the evaluators sprung the final test. Simulated enemy contact during the casualty evacuation. 1 role player went down, tagged with a severe leg wound. Nora had 3 minutes to treat him and call for extraction. She dropped to cover, assessed the threat, then moved. Pulled the casualty behind a berm. Applied a tourniquet to his leg high and tight, just above the simulated wound. Packed the wound with gauze. Called for extract on the radio using proper format. Held security while waiting for the simulation to end. The evaluators watched in silence. At hour 20, Nora crossed the final checkpoint. She dropped her pack, stood at attention, and waited. Hale was standing there with Whittaker and half a dozen senior officers. He stared at her, covered in dirt, soaked with sweat, face blank with exhaustion. "How?" he asked quietly. Nora didn't answer, just stood there waiting for him to dismiss her. Colonel Whittaker stepped forward. He was holding a manila folder. He looked at Hale, then at Nora, then back at Hale. "Admiral, there's something you need to know." Hale didn't take his eyes off Nora. "What?" "Lieutenant Kane isn't just a training instructor. She's on loan from Naval Special Warfare Group 1. Her assignment here is classified, but her service record isn't." He opened the folder and started reading. 2 silver stars, 3 bronze stars with Vela. Navy Cross for actions in Helmand Province, August 2019. 32 confirmed enemy kills across 4 combat deployments. Graduate of Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training, Class 340. Former member of SEAL Team 3, callsign Rapar 4. The silence that followed was absolute. Whittaker continued, voice steady. She was part of the 1st Integrated Female SEAL Platoon. She deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. She was second in command of her unit when their helicopter took fire during an insertion. She pulled her team leader, Lieutenant Marcus Brooks, 200 meters under enemy contact and kept him alive for 18 minutes until medical evacuation arrived. He died from his wounds. She received the Navy Cross for her actions that day. He closed the folder. You just spent 3 days trying to break one of the most decorated special operations soldiers in the United States military, sir. And she didn't quit. Hale's face had gone completely white. His hands were shaking. Nora reached down and rolled up her left sleeve. The tattoo was small, simple. Rapar 6 in black script just above her pulse. Below it, a date T12 AG 2019. She looked at Hale. Brooks was my team leader. He was my friend. He died in my arms. I made him a promise that day that I'd keep doing the job, that I wouldn't let his death mean nothing, that I'd never let anger or fear control me. She rolled her sleeve back down. You wanted to test me, Admiral. You wanted to prove I didn't belong. The truth is, I stopped needing to prove that 6 years ago. But you needed to see it, so I showed you. Hale opened his mouth. I closed it. I looked around at the other officers. Nobody met his eyes. Whitaker's voice was ice. Rear Admiral Hale, effective immediately. You're relieved of your oversight duties for this training program. You'll report to your commanding officer at 0800 tomorrow to explain why you struck a subordinate officer and then attempted to cover it up with false charges. Hale looked at Nora one more time. His expression was unreadable. Then he turned and walked away without saying a word. Nora stood in the silence that followed. The weight she'd been carrying for 3 days, for 6 years, lifted. She'd kept her promise to Brooks. She'd stayed calm, stayed controlled. And the truth had been enough. Whitaker extended his hand. Welcome to Pendleton, Lieutenant. Officially this time, Nora shook it. Thank you, sir. As she walked away, the sun was starting to break through the fog. The air smelled clean, fresh, and for the first time in a long time, Nora Kane allowed herself to feel something other than control. She felt peace. 2 weeks later, Rear Admiral Marcus Hale was reassigned to a staff position in Washington, D.C. The official report cited conduct unbecoming an officer. The unofficial version spread through the entire base. Everyone knew what he'd done, and everyone knew he'd gotten exactly what he deserved. Nora stayed at Pendleton. Her role was no longer classified. Word got out fast, and suddenly the quiet lieutenant nobody paid attention to became someone people looked at with respect. Not because of her rank, not because of her gender, because of what she'd earned. One afternoon, she was running a training exercise when a young Marine officer approached her. Captain Elena Reyes, 25 years old, fresh from officer candidate school. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Nora nodded. How did you stay so calm when he hit you? When everyone was watching, how did you not lose control? Nora was quiet for a moment. She touched the black band on her wrist. I made a promise to someone I loved, that I'd never let anger make my decisions, that I'd be calm in the storm, no matter what happened. And when you make a promise to someone you loved, you keep it. No matter how hard it gets. Reyes nodded slowly. Thank you, ma'am. Nora watched her walk away. Then she turned back to the training range. The sun was setting over the California hills, casting long shadows across Pendleton. The fog was rolling in again from the ocean, thick and gray. Somewhere out there, Marcus Brooks was resting. His name is carved on a wall in Virginia Beach. His call sign is remembered by the men who served with him. And Nora Kane, Rayar 4, was still standing, still fighting, still keeping her promise, for Brooks, for her father, for every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong. She touched her wrist one more time. Then she got back to work.